Gulls fans, welcome back to another episode of the 25 for 25 podcast. Happy Monday. We got a little bit of a virtual podcast here today as we welcome a very special guest, Gulls pitching coach, back for another season in Newport, Coach Kevin Long. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Eric. How are you? And before we get going, I just want to thank you for you know uh, hooking up with me this morning, and I've
Absolutely.
really been looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course. No, we cannot. I know we had a bit of technical difficulties the first time around, so I'm happy we were able to get this going here again and finally get it squared off because, I think it's good to have a nice little introduction to our entire coaching staff. And, coaches, you're returning for 2026 for your first time since 2024. We're beyond excited to have you back here, on behalf of the Goals organization, on behalf of the entire board, our owners, we cannot wait to welcome back the lovely Coach Kevin Long to Newport in 2026.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, before we get going, I
Yeah.
wanted to give a shout out to the Gulls family and
Mhm.
also to Chuck Pava,
Yeah.
um, Chris Patsos, Ronnie Westmoreland, Mark Horan, and Greg Thader, for having me back for the 2026 season. I feel truly blessed and very honored to be back. And thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Coach. It wouldn't be a true season without you, and we're very excited to have you back. So like I said, Coach, I want to go through a kind of a little three-part series here with all of our coaches this season. Of course, you as we're talking today, Coach Teddy Regan down the line, and as well manager Mike Coombs here. But Coach, I kind of just want to start with your background, whether that's being coming up as a player, coming up as a coach, what that looked like at the college level, what that looked like in summer ball, kind of just, let's start off and give our fans a nice little deep dive into your history in baseball.
Well, first of all, before we do a deep dive on that, I think I need to say that I'm going to be 75 this coming fall.
Wow.
So
75 years
basically,
young.
when you talk about the history of my baseball life and coaching, it goes back to the late 1950s when I was a kid growing up on Long Island, New York, in Massapequa Park, where I played baseball on those skin fields,
Mhm.
playing from sunrise to sunset. But as I got a little bit older, I went to A.G. Berner High School in Massapequa and played 4 years of varsity baseball there. And the coaches there, I still remember them. Pete Michelle, Chris Sweeney, Don Lang, and I remember them because they gave me some great foundations that laid a foundation for me. And I try and pass these things on,
Yeah.
to guys that I'm coaching now. After I graduated from Berner High School, I went on to play college baseball at the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio,
Mhm.
from 1969 through 73 under Bob Hildreth and Tom Jackson. And again, truly great people. And I remember them vividly when I think back. And they just expanded my knowledge about the game and how to be a better person.
Mhm.
And when I talk about my career at the University of Dayton, I got to tell you this one story. It was 1970, spring of 1970, and I'm the starting pitcher at the University of Dayton that day, and we're playing Ohio University, coached by the great Bob Wren. And when you're the starting pitcher, I always tried to watch the opposing BP
Yeah.
because I always had a chance to see who could rip it and who couldn't, who seemed to be weak or strong, you know, who's a who's a punch and Judy hitter, who's a switch hitter,
Right.
who can't hit that breaking ball, etc. But before the BP, there was a buzz around
Mhm.
the batting cage. There must have been 20 or so professional scouts there, and I'm saying, "Whoa, what's going on today?" I had never seen that many scouts at a college game before, and I, as the batters stepped into the box, there was no buzz, the first
Yeah.
couple. And then finally, this one guy stepped into the box. He was the third baseman.
Mhm.
And before he got into the box, he's got like four metal bats in his hand and he's swinging them around. And he finally gets into the batting cage and he stretches out full stride. And they start throwing the ball at him. And he's hitting line drives, he's gapping it, he's just ripping the heck out of the ball.
Yeah.
And then finally he takes strides and he's hitting the ball out of the ballpark like like I'm hitting a base hit. And I kind of circled him in the lineup and I said, hey, watch out for this guy.
Yeah.
And then the next guy that came in there was the catcher, and very similar, but he had a different style in the way he conducted his BP.
Hmm.
But so we get into the game, and the third baseman comes up the first time. I had him 3-2. I threw him a slider, ball four, check swing, ball four. Okay, second time he's up, I had him 3-2 again. So I said he's probably looking for the fastball this time around. So I threw him a slider, and he hit this ball up and out at least 425, easy 425. And the catcher behind him, he comes in there and he rips a line drive. I thought he was going to take my head off the second time through. So the third baseman turns out to be Mike Schmidt.
No
Okay.
shit.
And the catcher who hit behind him was Steve Swisher, okay, who was a first round draft pick of the Chicago White Sox in 1974.
That's amazing.
Okay, he had a great, you know, uh, career in the bigs,
Hmm.
and but that team, that Ohio University team in 1970 went to the College World Series and they finished fourth place.
Wow.
So that's as close as I got to the College World Series at Division One.
That's
But
awesome.
what a team! And I had a lot of great experiences at UD, but
Hmm.
that one really sticks out. You
That was
know, uh,
awesome.
so after my career at Dayton, I always aspired to be a professional.
Mhm.
Always wanted, my dream was to be a professional baseball player. It just didn't work out.
Right.
So here you are, you're graduating from college, pro ball's not in the mix. So what do you do? So, I had my bachelor's degree at that point, and I said, well, listen, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to get into law enforcement. So I
Hmm.
was fortunate enough to go and get a master's degree at the University of New Haven in Connecticut. And after I got my master's degree, I moved down to Miami
Hmm.
with my family. And in 1976, I got a job with the Miami-Dade. So here I am, late. I'm in the latter part of my law enforcement career, and I say,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm a young man. I'm going to be 52, 53 years old. So I made a decision right then and there. I wanted to get back into baseball.
Yeah.
So, I volunteered. I was a volunteer high school baseball coach at South Dade Senior High School.
Hmm.
And then I did a year with Palmetto Senior High School. And then finally with Miami Senior High School, Miami Southridge Senior High School. And uh, I was coaching for a gentleman by the name of Fred Burnside,
Gotcha.
one of the premier high school coaches in the country.
Hmm.
And he had a connection. He coached at Miami-Dade College.
Hmm.
So, I had long conversations with Fred about the situation of, hey, when I get done my law enforcement career, what can I do? And I wanted to get into baseball. So he said, listen, I know the head coach there, Steve Hertz. I'll give him a call. So Fred greased the skids for me. I had an interview in 2003 with Steve Hertz, the head
Hmm.
coach. And Steve goes, listen, Kevin, he says, listen, you're still a cop right now. And I said, listen, I said, Steve, I'll retire if you want me.
Yeah.
So Steve says, all right, I'll give you a shot.
There you
All
go.
right. So there you go. Here we are, late October, early November 2003. I put my 2 week notice in with Miami-Dade. I retire. I
Hmm.
have a luncheon. The luncheon's over at around 1:30 in the afternoon. And at 2:30, I'm on the field with my first practice at Miami-Dade College with Steve Hertz.
That's awesome.
So my career with Miami-Dade was from 2003 until 2019, 16 and a half years.
Wow.
I coached 7 seasons for Steve Hertz, and then 9 seasons for Danny Price. Um, Steve Hertz went on to be a Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame, Junior College Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
And Danny Price will be inducted into the Hall of Fame very shortly, the ABCA Division One College Hall of Fame.
That's
You know, I've
fantastic.
I've had a chance to be around
Hmm.
great coaches, and you know, I every game, every meeting, pre and post, you know, I tried to suck up as much as I could to be the best coach I could be.
Right.
Now, when I was at Miami-Dade, you know, I coached in the summer,
Hmm.
and in 2006, 2007, I coached for the Danbury Westerners
Hmm.
of the NECBL. And in 2009, I coached for the Wareham Gatemen of the Cape Cod League. And so here you go. That's the extent of my playing and my coaching career to date. You know what? You know, I I got the job with Newport in 2011 through 2015,
Hmm.
and and then in 2024, I was with them. And you know, in my 6 years with Newport, we had 4 Southern Conference championships
Yeah.
and 3 NECBL championships. Been very blessed with great players,
Hmm.
and coaching with Mike Coombs and Tenny Reagan has been tremendous. These guys are so knowledgeable. So every day is a learning lesson for me.
Absolutely. And we're getting the gang back together for 2026, hopefully to
I I
reinstate that
cannot wait. I cannot wait.
reinstating that magic from 2024. It's going to be
Yes,
amazing.
sir.
It's going to be
Yes,
awesome.
sir.
Coach, I want to hear just, in general, what sticks out to you about the Gulls, just from the coaching perspective, from the team perspective, from the organizational perspective, the community perspective, what makes the Gulls in your eyes, as special as they are?
Well, you know, everything starts at the top. You know,
Right.
if you're going to have a successful organization, you have to have tremendous leadership.
Hmm.
And Chuck and Chris and Mark, Ronnie Westmoreland and Fader, you know, they just know how to do it, and they've been
Hmm.
there infinitum. They've been there all the way through.
Hmm.
And when you have that sort of solid structure year after year after year, and you build on it year after year after year, you're going to be successful. And they
Absolutely.
bring in great players, great kids that want to be professionals and are
Hmm.
aspiring to be professionals, and they want to work hard. Um, you know, just being at Cardines game after game with the fans and the kids,
Right.
and then you have the challenge of the opposing teams and the grind of the trip. You know, it's around 75 days
Yeah.
and 44 games,
Hmm.
and and then hopefully postseason. All that is crammed in into a short summer. And if these kids really commit, you know, to being, you know, the best they can be, then you're going to have a successful season. And every year
Absolutely.
I've been there, we've been successful. And
Hmm.
that's why the Gulls are successful year after year after year. They have a plan, they have a formula, and they work hard at it. And the support staff that's in there, the volunteers, you know, the people in the community that come out, you know, the host families, um, just everybody embraces the program. And it's a center point for Newport during the summer.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love how you talk about the commitment part of it too, right? Because you look at these guys coming in terms of the players every summer, right? And these kids are coming off of, 50, 60 game seasons in their spring seasons at their schools. And then we're asking them to come in, commit their time for, 2+ months for 44 more games, about 70 total days, right? So what does that conversation with the coaching staff and maybe you specifically with the pitchers look like when we're first bringing these guys in for the summer? And what are a couple of those topics that you discuss when guys are first coming in here?
Well, even before they come in, we try and reach out to each pitcher
Right.
and try and establish some sort of a relationship, either
Hmm.
online or maybe a phone call.
Yeah.
And but when they do get here, it's usually on June 1st. You know, I give them a questionnaire on what their goals are, what their
Hmm.
strengths, what their weaknesses are, what are they trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
etc. But also, too, Mike and I have all their stats. We have a real clear history of what they've done at their respective schools.
Hmm.
So we have a pretty good idea on how we're going to proceed. But, we only have one or two practices before the season starts.
Right.
So we have to hit the ground hard
Yeah.
and smart. And also, too, if we're going to be successful in the beginning, it's because of the support staff that gives us all
Hmm.
the analytical information that we need in order to have an idea of our staff, but also the opposition that's coming in.
Absolutely.
But, the conversations that I'll have with the pitchers, go ahead.
no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
The conversation, all right, the conversations that I'll have with the pitchers, Mike and I will have with the pitchers, basically, we're just trying to make sure they're all healthy.
Right.
And then basically our advice to them is, hey, you're not going to have a better opportunity, to improve
Right.
anywhere else than other in Newport
Hmm.
because, you know, uh, everything is available to them. And if you do this smartly and commit to it and really do a deep dive on how to get better, get into the weight room, listen to what the coaches say, you become a better teammate. You're going to have the summer of your life, baseball wise, but also, too, you're going to be in Newport for the summer. So
Right.
you can't go wrong.
Of course. Of course.
It's a tremendous formula for success.
And that's a common thing you see with the players, right? I mean, obviously they're coming in here to develop on their own, hopefully, take that next step in whatever capacity that is in their careers, right? But, it's something we always see. These kids start to understand that, they're playing something for greater than just their development at the same time, too, right? They're playing truly for the community of Newport. They're playing for the fans. They're playing to bring that just overall, togetherness inside of the Newport Gulls fan base. And it's awesome to see every season.
Well, I try and stress to them it's you have to do more than what's expected.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you do more than what's expected of, in your preparation and what you do on game day, what you do when you're out there, when you got the rock, what you do in the community, what you do with the kids, what you do with the fan base, that you're going to remember this the rest of your life,
Absolutely.
and if they do it the right way and they truly understand that they don't want to go home at the end of the season, you're
Hmm.
going to ride this thing out all the way. And that's what we
Absolutely.
try and do. That's what we try and do. And, in coaching with Mikey Coombs, Coombs has been doing this infinitum with the Gulls,
Right.
and Teddy Baseball, he's an inspiration in and of himself. But, all three of us are going to be 75 this year. So,
Hmm.
we push one another, and the goals that the kids have are our goals.
Right.
So every time they succeed, we succeed. And
Absolutely.
what motivates me is to watch them succeed. And
Hmm.
I try and do everything I can, either mentally or physically, how to push them, to be the best they can be, because it's important when they leave Newport. They have to have the skills that they've never had, all the skills that they've wanted to work on in this
Yeah.
short period of time. And they have to have those leadership skills when they go back to their respective schools.
Hmm.
So the championship experience they have here, they can light a fire under their program when they go back to school. That's our
Absolutely.
job.
That's
That's our
exactly.
job.
Exactly. And, I like how we mentioned the volunteers too, right? Because what people might not understand at face value, and I've mentioned this a couple times in some episodes previously, but, the interns are the ones and the volunteers, they're really the ones running the team from behind the scenes throughout the summer, right? Obviously I'm pushing them to get where they need to be in the summer on the intern side of things, but, there's a point where I get hands off and they just start, running with stuff themselves, right? But again, that dovetails really well onto the analytical side of things, bridging that gap between getting that communication to the players and to you guys with the coaching staff. How helpful is it to have interns that are there to help you communicate those stats and analytics with the kids every summer?
Well, the analytical insight, you could go back on the history of how to prepare for games.
Right.
And analytics now is a vital part of
Hmm.
success. And I look back at the 2024 season, how it began and how it ended. I had a guy working for me, Andrew,
Mhm.
who I told him what I wanted generally. And before I knew it, he was giving me everything I needed to know on who was pitching that day,
Yep.
who was available for the opposition, who were the best hitters were, and who to watch for, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. So we would share that with the coaching staff. Teddy and Mike and I would talk. But as the game progressed, we would be talking, especially when you get into crunch time, the last three innings are money time for me. And those are the most critical times. We could look into our analytical bank and we could all anticipate what's going to transpire on the part of the opposition.
Right.
We could put roadblocks in, et cetera, and we could start preparing our guys in the bullpen, right and left, based on what we knew analytically going in. And as the season progressed, we would get stats from the NECBL. So when you merged all this information, you knew the opposition like you knew your players almost. And
Absolutely.
I think that especially in 2024, when it came down to, the last game, the last inning, the last batter,
Yeah.
there you go. And that analytical, that edge that it
Mhm.
gives you, it can make the difference between winning it and not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we saw firsthand how crazy that goes into practice with how involved that game three in 2024 was, right?
No doubt, no doubt. It was a seesaw, and you were there in 2024.
Mhm.
We had a pretty good season, but when we played Sanford, Sanford was on a roll,
Absolutely.
and they and because Mike and Teddy and I were the coaches in the All-Star game,
Hmm.
you know, that was like 2 weeks before postseason started. We kind of knew what Sanford had. We
Right.
saw him throw, and I said,
Hmm.
"Whoa!" They had a lefty that just blew us away in game one at our place.
Hmm.
And here we are. We got to go up to their place the next day and play, and lick our wounds. And we managed to win the second game, and then we had the rubber game,
Yep.
and then, the back and forth in the rubber game was just
Amazing.
unbelievably fantastic. And, I vividly recall, and every time I think about the Gulls at this point, I think about that final game with Sanford where, we're winning almost the whole game.
Yep.
We're up, and then they're creeping back, and, we're running out of pitching. They're running out of pitching, and they got everybody lined up to hit, and in the seventh inning, they go ahead, and the eighth inning comes around, and we're still behind, and here we go. We're in the bottom of the ninth.
Yep.
Okay, bottom of the ninth, one out. Okay, our hitter comes up, ties the game. Okay,
Unbelievable.
it was just magic, and that was the second home run of the day,
Yeah.
and um, and then here we are. We're in the bottom of the ninth, and it's still, oh no, tenth. We're in the bottom of the tenth. Okay, and the first batter gets hit. And I remember they're pitching a sidewinding pitcher from Alabama.
Hmm.
And this kid shoved against us when we played at Sanford at that place,
Yep.
you know. But sidewinders, man, I'll tell you, if they don't have it, boy, they can lose it real quick.
Mhm.
And after the first guy got hit, next guy walked, and here we go. We got our best hitter up, Williams.
Dixon Williams, you knew it was over right there.
Williams is up. Okay. And before Williams gets a chance to go in the box, Teddy Baseball's talking to him down there. And after the game, I found out what Teddy told him.
Hmm.
But let's get back to the at bat. We got the at bat, and boom, base hit up the middle, a hard base hit up the middle.
Yep.
And I'm standing next to Coombs in the dugout, and he's looking at that base hit. I'm looking at the base hit, and I'm watching at the guy hit the third base bag, and he's turning towards home. I look at the center fielder. He fields it. He crow hops, he throws, the ball's in the air. I pick up our runner at third base. I'm watching him. It's like slow mo. It's like
Hmm.
just like in the movies, slow mo. And then, I look at the ball in the air and it's coming towards home. I'm watching the catcher, I'm watching the runner, and then the ball hits the backstop. And I'm saying that our runner, he's got his hands up in the air. And if you see the video, he crosses home plate and the dugout rips.
Yep.
Okay. And there was a time for like 5, 8 seconds where Coombs and I were just standing there. We're just looking.
Just
And then
unbelievable.
finally, I came to my senses and I go, Mike, hey, it's time to go. We got to
Yeah.
get out there and stuff. But
It was
I'll remember that till the day I die. That was
100%.
fantastic.
Hands
Memories like that, you never lose.
hands down the best game, just baseball game in general I've ever witnessed in my life. Just you talk about the back and forth, experiencing everything you can't possibly could in a baseball game. It was truly, truly one for the ages.
Truly, I've been a part of 3 championship games at the end. The first one was in 2012. We had the best team in summer baseball that year.
Mhm.
And we just sort of dominated all the way through. And then the second one was it was it, it, it was a back and forth series, but we won in two.
Mhm.
But the last one, when you got a rubber game, and then you get into those final innings, and every pitch counts. And
Absolutely.
it was so fantastic. And I just love being in Newport because of all the things that Newport does for the players, but what the players do for Newport. And
Absolutely.
it's a win-win scenario, and it'll always be a win-win scenario because of the people involved.
100%, 100% coach. And, I think that's a great way to kind of round down the conversation here with just, leaving you with one more thought. With the 25th anniversary coming up this year, coach, obviously it being here in 2026, what does a 25th anniversary mean to you in terms of this organization?
Well, that's a benchmark to begin with. You
Right.
know, um, in 25 years, there's going to be a lot of players coming in from
Hmm.
those 25 years,
Absolutely.
and there's going to be a lot of coaches coming in too.
Yep.
And the memories are going to be fantastic. It's going to be like a Hall of Fame event that entire summer
100%.
of players coming in. And then, I'm sure the fan base is going to be there at a high level during all the home games because of it. And it's totally unique, and the Gulls have won more championships than any other team in the NECBL. And it would just be fitting to do something special in 2020 2026. It's going to be tough, because the competition is so keen.
Hmm.
And that's what makes the NECBL so great as well, because there's so many good teams in this league, so many great organizations. And the organizations, they all push one another to be the best. So
Absolutely.
it's going to be a great season. And I just can't wait to get there.
100% coach. I'm right there with you. We cannot wait to start here in a couple months. We're almost winding down until, a solid 4 months to go here. So the days keep ticking down and we cannot wait till the season starts and we cannot wait to welcome our very own coach Kevin Long back to our Gulls coaching staff in 2026. Coach, I really appreciate you joining me today to talk just to talk ball, talk Gulls, and talk about the season coming up.
Well, I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing it in a couple of months, and you guys stay warm. You guys
Yeah.
got some cold days coming up this weekend, so stay warm.
Yeah, we cannot escape our snowy Sundays these past 3 weeks. So hopefully
It's
we
been
don't
kind
get
of tough.
smoked with another storm.
Well,
Absolutely.
just be careful and stay safe.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you very much.
All right,
Gulls
Eric. Take care,
fans,
man.
absolutely, absolutely. Gulls fans, thank you very much for tuning in today. We will be back here with another episode of the 25 for 25 podcast next Monday, and I cannot wait for it. Stay safe out there, Gulls fans. Thanks for tuning in.